And the first person to ever use the word feminist in print is South Carolinian. It's Louisa McCord. Louisa McCord uses the word feminist as an attack on the women's rights movement. So the word feminist itself, the first time it is not used in anything that we would think in the context of feminist or feminism today. It's used in the same manner as other isms of the time, right? Socialism, communism, feminism. And Louisa McCord was a fantastically wealthy South Carolina planter. Her father was Langdon Chevis. He was director of the Bank of the United States for a while. She married David McCord. They had a plantation in Fort White, alongside the plantation. She owned a house here downtown. It's still standing. It's the corner of Pendleton and Bull Streets, so right across the street from the university, from the little horseshoe entrance at McKissick. And y'all know who owns that house now, right there in college, and rents it out to everybody. It's our governor, Henry Master. It's one of his college some tenants. Yeah, it's been subdivided into a bunch of different little things, but it's still there. But Louisa McCord was also one of the intellectual elites of South Carolina at that point. She's being published in all the major Southern journals, DuBose Review, the Southern Quarterly, these types of things. She's being published alongside of kind of the intellectual male elite of the South. But all of these people, her included, are using this intellectual position to defend the institution of slavery, right? I find her endlessly fascinating. She very rarely published under her own name. She would publish under her initials a lot. She would publish sometimes under a male pseudonym, and every now and then she would publish under her name. But she clearly found herself the intellectual equal of these men, right? And she took to the pages of these Southern reviews to publicly attack people like the Grimke sisters who were arguing for abolition and women's rights. But she used what was clearly, to her mind, equal, if not superior intellect to a lot of these men to defend the racial and gender hierarchies of the time. And she has this really complicated kind of argument that she makes of this hierarchy with white men on top, and then white women, and then black men, and then black women. It's kind of the way society is ordered. So and I think she really, to me, kind of gets to the heart of kind of contradiction of slavery and how these people tried to justify it. That she could use clearly what she thought was a superior intellect to consciously put herself at an inferior position to white men. And she did it simply because once you start disrupting hierarchies, then where does it stop? And the South's whole reason for being at this point is the institution of slavery. So she disrupts the gender hierarchy, which is what the Grimke sisters are doing too. What's next? It's the racial hierarchy. And then you're back into the nullification crises of the 1820s, 1830s. Those were not necessarily about slavery per se, they were more about tariffs. But Calhoun, this is when Calhoun writes this argument in favor of nullification, which is used by the secession crises in the 1850s and 1860s to basically justify South Carolina leaving the Union. The Republican Party is created in 1854, I believe, as a northern anti-slavery party. Of course, November 1860, Lincoln is elected president on the Republican Party ticket. South Carolina has basically already decided at this point that if Lincoln is president, they're going to secede. South Carolina was ready to secede in 1850 with the Nashville Secession Convention. None of the other states wanted to do it. South Carolina declared they were going to secede anyway on their own. They ended up being talked down. But by 1860, they're going to do it no matter what. They end up doing it. And so the great question, Brad and I were talking about, what caused the Civil War? Was it states' rights? And okay, maybe it was states' rights. But it was states' rights to own slaves, right? And it's a very selective interpretation of states' rights. The southern states weren't averse to using the federal government to enforce the Fugitive Slave Act when slaves ran away to the north for their freedom, right? I mean, they were more than happy to have the federal government go get those slaves and bring them back. But it's the institution of slavery, and it's their perception that it's under threat.
Why was Florida succeeding if they were allowing escaped slaves?
Well, that was the Spanish government. I mean, by this time,
Slaves left by
right? Yes. Florida becomes part of the Union in the 1820s, I believe. Parts of it, it comes right after kind of Louisiana Purchase in the early 1800s. But yeah, Florida by this point is strongly part of the South. And really, it's interesting. These counties are interesting. This is not. I mean, this part of Florida is largely uninhabited still at this point. I mean, we fought the U.S. government fought the Seminoles as late as the 1840s here, but really, kind of this part, the Panhandle and the Jacksonville area. I mean, it would be indistinguishable from the country South Carolina and the country Georgia. And this is right. And actually, this area in East Florida, if you ever look at the names, they're all South Carolina family names. They all moved down there. Just as you can kind of trace that west, there's Calhoun and Sumter counties all the way west. The Gadsden family, so this part of Florida. Right? I mean, this thought is still in the mind of almost every white person in the South. If you work hard, save a little money, one day I'll own slaves too. So I mean, it may be that the majority of the people that lived in the South did not own slaves, but a lot of them fought, a lot of them volunteered. But also, the first, if you want to call it national draft in United States history, where does it happen? It happens in the Confederacy. So they don't have enough troops. The Confederacy enacts movement laws within there. It's one of the strongest national governments that's been created. If the Confederate States of America cared anything about states' rights, they sure did show it in the way they treated the states under the Edinburgh blockade. You need somewhere to base your blockade, and they based it in South Carolina. So from November 1861 through the end of the war, there is a federal outpost on the coast of South Carolina. And there are tens of thousands of federal troops that are stationed there throughout the war. They can't really go anywhere. I don't know. I mean, we have kind of these roads now, but you ever try to drive from Beaufort out to the rest of the state, and there's not a lot of ways to get there. I mean, there were even less then. So I mean, they never really made any excursions into the state of South Carolina militarily after they took this. But they're there on the coast. But what they did create there on the coast was a center for enslaved people to leave and go to. And this starts happening almost immediately. Plantation lands are just abandoned by the white planters around there. A lot of them take enslaved people with them, some just leave them there. And these people just start making their way to the Union Army, the federal troops there in Beaufort and on Hilton Head. The town of Mitchellville, there was a long reading about Mitchellville that we talked about. It was named after a Union general, and it became a self-sustaining community of self-emancipated slaves on Hilton Head Island. It peaked at thousands of people. They elected their own government. They instituted taxes. They had trash pickup. They had police force, their own appointed police force. They passed the first compulsory education laws in the state of South Carolina. Every child in Mitchellville was educated. And this was kind of done through kind of a joint venture that came known as kind of Fort Royal experience, kind of public-private partnership with the Union government and northern investors and also philosophical individuals. Robert Smalls is somebody that we'll talk about a bit, and we already talked about some. Robert Smalls becomes kind of one of the Union heroes of South Carolina during the Civil War. Smalls had been enslaved by a man in Beaufort, South Carolina. He worked as a pilot on ships, directing ships into the harbors. 1862, he steals the ship, the planter, the dead of the night, sails it out of Charleston Harbor. He had been working on the ship as an enslaved person, sails the ship out of Charleston Harbor, standing at the bow like he's the Confederate captain of the ship, flashes the correct military signals to the Confederate authorities who let him pass, and sails the boat right to the Union fleet and turns the ship over to the Union fleet. Union fleet gains a new ship. 17 people that he took with them were emancipated from slavery that night, and he becomes a hero. He's awarded a big bounty. He's eventually becomes captain of the very ship that he stole and participates in naval military actions up and down the coast throughout the war. He uses the money that he receives from the Union government to purchase his former owner's house in Beaufort, where he lives out his days. Robert Small's house is still in Beaufort, and it's kind of one of the sights to see. He's really a fascinating story and somebody that doesn't get kind of talked about enough. And he goes on, he doesn't stop there, he goes on and we'll talk about him a little bit later too. He's a Reconstruction legislator, state senator. He's not a national senator. Postmaster eventually in Beaufort, and this is even after the Reconstruction government falls. He still he introduces we'll talk in the Reconstruction legislature. He introduces the bill that founds the public education system in South Carolina. Fascinating person.
Robert Smalls died in Beaufort in the house of his former master. Modjeska was 15 years old when he died, and I spent the last 20 years of Modjeska's life with her, so it just kind of shrunk time for me that
and they were told and retold, and then some of us may have not known them, and some of us may deliberately forget them. But there were some South Carolinians who knew these stories. The raid on the Combahee River, 1863, not led by a South Carolinian. It is instead led by Harriet Tubman, who was born in Maryland on the Eastern Shore. Ran away and self-emancipated herself at a young age, and then was one of the principal conductors on the Underground Railroad, getting people out of the Deep South, enslaved people out of the Deep South to freedom in the North. By 1862 or so, she's working basically as a spy or an intelligence officer for the U.S. Army in the low country of South Carolina. She helps plan this raid. She goes along with the two companies of Union soldiers, one of which I believe was the 2nd South Carolina Volunteer Infantry, and helps liberate over 700 people from off the Combahee River in South Carolina. They burned out one plantation, they destroy a rice mill, and Tubman and others convince 700 men and women and children to leave plantations and come back with the Union troops. While she may not have held an official military rank, so you can't say that it becomes the first military mission led by a woman in the United States history. She was certainly key in planning of the details and making sure that this wasn't just a military incursion to go burn down a rice field. This was planned as a raid to emancipate enslaved people, and that portion of it certainly was Harriet Tubman's doing. The 1st and 2nd Volunteer Infantry. So by 1862, this mass of people who are showing up at federal garrison on the South Carolina coast, the white Union generals there start realizing that they have a lot of able-bodied men here, and wouldn't it be nice to put them in the Army? It's not official government policy at this point to be able to put black people in general, and certainly not recently emancipated slaves into the Army, but some local commanders in South Carolina start doing just this. Eventually, this rule changes. Black men are allowed into the Union Army, and two of the very first regiments in in the Federal Army are the 1st and 2nd Volunteer Infantries of South Carolina. they had really a distinguished military service record too. These two companies are heavily involved in the seizure and occupation of Jacksonville, Florida in 1864, I believe. They, again, don't get the recognition of, I mean, we all know Glory, right? Glory's 54th Mass. That's, and certainly they performed heroic service on the South Carolina coast. These were largely northern blacks that had volunteered to fight in the South. But first and second volunteer, these were former slaves on the South Carolina coast that signed up to fight South Carolina troops. And I think there's something to be said for that. They eventually end up becoming the 33rd and 34th Regiment of the United States Colored Troops after the war, which become part of kind of